Is Walpurgisnacht a fraud? Well, the short answer is no. The long answer, despite the many depictions of Walpurgisnacht getting defeated in different side stories and spin-off series, like in the Madoka Magica PlayStation Portable game where Mami Tomoe defeats with the weakest version of Madoka Walpurgisnacht, and in the Homura revenge story where Kyoko, Homura and Madoka defeat Walpurgisnacht, and in the PS Vita game where a combination of all the 4 magical girls except Madoka defeats Walpurgisnacht, and in the PS Vita game where all the magical girls defeat Walpurgisnacht, and in the Magia Record game where all the magical girls defeat Walpurgisnacht. Walpurgisnacht is still the most powerful witch in all of existence in the Madoka Magica universe. All these before-mentioned victories were most likely an attempt by the other authors of the Madoka Magica universe to give the fans a happy end, as well as rewarding the fans who played these games with a happy end. But even though these before-mentioned wins in the different video games always end with a tragic twist, the PlayStation Portable route where Mami Tomoe and Madoka win against Walpurgisnacht results in both of them dying thanks to their exhaustion, and the before-mentioned PS Vita game was nothing more than a dream. The only real timeline where everything was perfect and Homura achieved her dream goal was when Homura locked the fuck in and had the best RNG and best understanding of each and every magical girl all around her, since a single mistake resulted into a butterfly effect and resulted with her being the only magical girl to fight against Walpurgisnacht. Also, the fight against Walpurgisnacht is in the video games extremely hard, since Walpurgisnacht is multiple levels above you, so narratively it's hard to win against Walpurgisnacht even in the video games and even in these stories where the magical girls did win against Walpurgisnacht. However, some people still believe that Walpurgisnacht is just a fraud. But you need to remember, the only time Walpurgisnacht was defeated in the anime was when a more powerful witch occurred, this being Witch for Madoka, or when Madoka's karmic potential was so high enough that she turned into a goddess and one-shot her. You also need to remember that Walpurgisnacht itself can't be damaged by physical attacks, meaning that all of Homura's attempt of shooting it is completely immune. It was even stated that an hour-long Tio Finale shooting wouldn't hurt Walpurgisnacht a single bit, which is why I love the depiction of Walpurgisnacht in both the original anime and in Scene Zero, because in Scene Zero Walpurgisnacht was a freaking threat that even the combination of 2 time loopers and the charisma of Mabuya and the combination of Mami Tomoe, Kyoko Sakura, Homura, Madoka and Mabuya couldn't defeat Walpurgisnacht despite being in one of their strongest forms, which is why Kyubey was so confident into allowing Homura's wish of turning back the time, since no matter how often Homura would loop into a different timeline, she wouldn't be able to defeat Walpurgisnacht with her skill set, and even if she would convince all the magical girls into following her and trying to defeat Walpurgisnacht, it wouldn't result into the ending she desired and would always end in despair, as can be perfectly showcased in the extra route where Homura managed to recruit every single magical girl but had extreme bad RNG, despite the fact that everyone was at high spirit and was not depressed or suicidal. Sayaka had her boyfriend and was super happy, Kyoko was rich with grief seeds, Madoka overcame her self-doubts, and Mami Tomoe wasn't suicidal anymore and became an idol and was no longer alone. However, since in this timeline Homura didn't train them enough, it resulted into a total wipeout, where Homura just left the entire crew to die on their own, since she knew they couldn't defeat Walpurgisnacht. In some way, Walpurgisnacht is the final gatekeeper, not just of physical strength but also of emotional integrity. It also has to be noted that Homura acts like a speedrunner, obsessed with the perfect route. She sacrifices human connection in favor of efficiency. This can be perfectly showcased in Scene Zero, where she literally describes her and Mabuya's situation as if they were visual novel characters or visual novel players who try every single route in the hope of finding the perfect ending and become more and more emotionally numb to the world, since in that timeline they didn't feel anything or didn't even acknowledge that they had just killed their adopted sibling or adopted daughter and just continue going forward. This is also showcased in the original anime, where Homura was so emotionally detached towards every other character beside Madoka that she was ready to throw hands with Mami Tomoe in episode 3 and was ready to kill Sayaka in episode 8. And she even stated in episode 11 that she became even detached towards Madoka, since every timeline she didn't spend as much time as she would with Madoka, which can also be perfectly showcased in episode 1, where every single interaction with Madoka hurt her more and more. She therefore also started for the perfect run to communicate with other people, since she believes that no one would believe her anyways and it would just be a waste of time explaining everything only for other magical girls to hunt her down or claiming that she is crazy, since this happened in the second or third timeline as well, and she's done with it, which is why she always ends up alone in the fight against Walpurgisnacht, and she can't damage Walpurgisnacht, which also results into her becoming more and more depressed and more desperate, which results into her soul gem getting tarnished, and her desperation grows stronger and stronger, and her inevitably always seeing Madoka either dying to Walpurgisnacht, turning into a witch, or dying in front of her, which once again breaks her heart connection towards Madoka and showcases once again how powerful Walpurgisnacht is. So in conclusion, Walpurgisnacht is not a fraud. She is however also not a real character, but a symbol and a natural disaster. She represents the emotional and narrative climax of each timeline, the point at which Homura resolve's relationship and resilience are put to the test.